For 3 years, my husband made me feel guilty for wanting anything that didn't come with a yellow clearance sticker. Then I found a receipt tucked under the driver's seat of his car, folded twice like something private. The store name meant nothing to me at first, but the item did, and the price, and most of all, the delivery address. It wasn't our address, but the worst part wasn't the price. It was what he had made me return 2 days earlier while that receipt was already sitting in his car. And when I realized what he had been doing, what he had been building for 3 years while I ate gray-edged meat and returned my own winter boots at the register, I didn't cry. I started taking notes. Grant Reed never called himself cheap. He called himself disciplined. That was how he made cruelty sound responsible. At first I believed him. By year 3, I understood that his discipline only applied to me. He made me return a dress I bought for his office holiday party. $180. He stood in the kitchen while I pulled it out of the bag, folded it, and said nothing. He said, "We're not there yet, Natalie." Then he patted my shoulder like I was a child who had almost stolen a cookie. He bought discount meat on Sundays, the kind with yellow clearance stickers, and told me to cut off whatever parts had turned gray. He said fresh meat was a marketing trick. He said dessert at restaurants was financially irresponsible. He said heating above 68 degrees was wasteful. He checked grocery receipts at the kitchen table, line by line. Once, in the middle of a grocery store, he took a small bottle of vanilla yogurt out of my cart and held it up like evidence. $4 for this? He said, loud enough for the woman behind us to hear. This is why people stay broke. I put it back while he stood there watching me. That night, he ordered himself takeout because he said the discounted chicken I cooked smelled off. For our second anniversary, he gave me a 4-pack of clearance kitchen towels. He said he had noticed the old ones were getting thin. He said it with pride. I had to ask permission before spending more than $25, not because he said it out loud. He never said it out loud. He said it through silence, through the look he gave me when I came home with anything unexpected, through the way he'd hold a receipt and breathe slowly through his nose. Every sacrifice, he said, was going into the future fund, our savings account, for a house, for security, for children someday. He was building something. We were building something. I believed him for a long time. I believed him because I loved him, because I was tired, because I didn't know yet what the future fund was actually for. The first thing I noticed was a charge on the credit card statement. Not our joint account, his personal one. I only saw it because he left the browser open on the laptop we shared. Boutique Elara. $412. Under client gifts. I didn't say anything immediately. Grant had his own clients. He worked in business development. Client gifts made sense. But then I noticed a spa confirmation in his email, the kind that forwards automatically. A full-day package, champagne arrival, couples stone massage, at a hotel 40 minutes from our house. Booked for a Saturday, he had told me he was at a conference. I showed him the email. Casually, like I had seen it by accident, which I had. He said it was a hospitality expense, a client and her husband. He said their company was reviewing a contract and the dinner alone wasn't enough. He said it without blinking. But he was gripping his coffee mug with both hands. An innocent man would have been annoyed at the implication. Grant was scared. I could see it in the stillness of his face, the kind of still that takes effort to maintain. I filed it away. Then I started paying attention. Grant's company held a charity dinner in March. Black tie. I wore a navy dress I had bought 2 years earlier. Still good, still clean, not embarrassing. Grant looked at it once when I came downstairs and said nothing. He was already in his jacket, checking his phone. The venue was beautiful. I had a glass of wine and tried to enjoy it. That was when I saw her. She was standing near the bar in a white dress that probably cost more than our monthly grocery budget. Not showy, elegant, the kind of woman who doesn't have to announce herself because the room does it for her. She held her champagne like it was already warm, but she was tolerating it as a favor to everyone else. Grant saw her at the same moment I did. He went still. The same stillness from the kitchen, except worse. I watched his jaw tighten. I watched him make a decision about how to arrange his face. She noticed him too. And she smiled the way certain women smile, with her eyes doing something entirely different than her mouth. She came over. "Grant." Her voice was smooth and unhurried. "I didn't know you'd be here." Grant said, "Bianca, this is my wife, Natalie." Bianca Vale looked at me the way a woman looks at a piece of furniture that is functionally fine, but aesthetically unfortunate. "Natalie," she said warmly, "what a sweet dress. Is that from last season?" Before I could answer, she glanced at Grant with something private in her expression and said, "Grant always did appreciate practical women." Then she tilted her head at me, almost gently, and added, "He mentioned once that you two are very disciplined about spending. I think that's lovely. Some women get discounts, some women get gifts." She smiled. "It says a lot about a marriage." She walked away. Grant was already signaling for another drink. I stood very still and thought about how she knew we were disciplined about spending. How she said it like it was an inside joke. How she didn't look at me like a stranger. She knew me. She knew things about me that I had never told her, which meant Grant had. The next morning, I found her Instagram. I don't even know why I looked. Maybe because humiliation makes you curious before it makes you smart. Her newest post was a marble table, a glass of champagne, and the corner of a cream-colored designer box. The caption said, "A real man never asks you to check the price." I stared at that line for almost a full minute, because the night before, Grant had told me I should start cutting my shampoo with water to make it last longer. 2 days after the dinner, I found the receipt he had been hiding. I had dropped my phone in Grant's car and reached under the seat to check if it had slid back. It hadn't, but a folded receipt had. I opened it standing in the driveway. Maison Lefebvre, a boutique on the east side of the city I had walked past exactly once and never entered. One item, a structured calfskin tote in cream, $4,812, delivered to Bianca Vale. Under the delivery line, there was a gift note. "You deserve beautiful things. G." I stood there in the cold for a long time. 2 days earlier, Grant had followed me to the register at a shoe store and made me put back a pair of winter boots. $89. He said my current ones were still functional. He said the word functional while holding my elbow, gently, like he was being reasonable. $4,800 for Bianca Vale. I took a photo of the receipt on my phone. I folded it back exactly as I had found it. I went inside and made dinner. I didn't say a word, but that was the last night I was the woman he thought I was. I am not a forensic accountant, but I am a woman who spent 3 years being corrected on how she spends money, which means I learned exactly how money works in a marriage whether I wanted to or not. I knew which accounts existed. I knew the login to the home filing cabinet. I knew where Grant kept paper statements because he didn't trust the cloud. I spent 2 weekends while he was at the office going through everything. What I found made my hands shake. Not from fear, from fury. The payments were everywhere, disguised under labels that sounded reasonable in isolation. Business consulting, client hospitality, professional services, vendor retainer, lifestyle management. Some went through his personal card, some through a secondary business account I hadn't known existed. Together, they paid for Bianca's apartment, a rental in the east quarter of the city, $1,200 a month, paid consistently for 22 months. Bianca's spa memberships, monthly, premium tier. Dental work, $2,300 paid to a cosmetic practice downtown. A car down payment, 17% on a lease she signed alone. Designer clothes, billed through a boutique account. Multiple purchases. The handbag was just the one I had found. 3 vacations I traced through hotel receipts, a coastal resort, a mountain retreat, and 1 international flight Grant claimed was a solo work trip to a finance conference. I put all the numbers on a spreadsheet. Then I opened the future fund statements. And that was when the room actually went quiet around me, even though I was alone. Our future fund had been funded partly by Grant's income, but it had also been funded by my overtime hours, my quarterly bonuses, The raise I got in year 2 that I had been so proud of, that I had transferred in myself because Grant said it was the responsible thing to do. He had moved it out in installments. I had been paying for her life. That same night, Grant came home with 3 packs of discounted chicken. One of them had leaked through the plastic bag. He placed it on the counter and said, "Just rinse it. People waste food because they're dramatic." I stood there holding that cold, leaking package, knowing that 3 hours earlier he had sent Bianca $800 for something labeled skin renewal treatment. That was the first time I looked at my husband and didn't see a careful man. I saw a man feeding me scraps so another woman could glow. I found the address from the delivery record on the boutique receipt. I drove there on a Tuesday morning, parked across the street, and waited. I knew the building. I knew it because I had stood on the sidewalk outside it 3 years ago, pointing it up to Grant on my phone, a photo I had saved to a folder called Someday. It had high ceilings and arched windows and a courtyard I could see from the street. Grant had laughed. He said, "That's not us, Natalie. That's a fantasy." I had deleted the folder. I sat in my car and watched Bianca Vale walk out of the front door in a white wool coat, sunglasses on, a coffee in her hand. She moved like someone who had never been rushed by anyone in her life. Grant's car turned onto the street. He got out. He walked around to the passenger side and opened the door for her. He smiled at her, a smile I had not seen in years, the one that reaches the eyes, and she got in without fully looking at him. He closed the door carefully, like she was delicate, like she was precious. Then he got back in and drove away. I sat in my car for a long time after they were gone. I thought about all the times he had not opened the car door for me, all the times I had waited in the parking lot of a grocery store, hands full of the cheap things he'd approved. I thought about the boots, the dress, the clearance kitchen towels. Then I drove home and opened my laptop. I had a lot more to document. The messages were on a tablet he used to use for travel. He had switched devices but never wiped it. I charged it and it opened straight to an old messaging thread. I read from the beginning. Bianca's messages were short and direct. No softness, no pretense. Send the money before Friday. Don't make me ask twice. I need the dental appointment covered. Send the amount to the same account. Is your wife still eating the discount meat? Grant's replies were desperate in a way I had never seen from him. With me, he was calm, controlled, certain. With her, he was scrambling. She doesn't know anything. I'll fix it, I promise. I'll send it tonight. I'm handling it, Bianca. Then I found a message from her to a contact named M, forwarded by mistake, it seemed, or perhaps not, where she wrote, "He thinks he's impressing me. He's the most useful idiot I've ever had. His wife eats markdown specials and I get Maison Lefebvre. Don't tell me I'm not creative." I put the tablet down on the kitchen table. I already knew about the money. I had already mapped the payments, photographed the receipts, and contacted a lawyer. But I hadn't known the why, not fully. I found it in an older thread. A conversation from years before we were married, forwarded in a moment where Grant had apparently been explaining himself. Bianca had broken up with him, years ago. She had told him he was small, that he thought small, lived small, and would always be a man from the discount shelf. Grant had spent the last 3 years trying to prove she was wrong. He hadn't done it by becoming wealthy. He had done it by starving his own wife and feeding that money to Bianca like an offering. He made me cheap so she could feel expensive. I didn't need to cry anymore. I finally understood the math. He made me smaller every month so she could look more expensive. I did not confront him. Screaming would have warned him. I wanted him comfortable. I wanted him proud. I wanted him standing in front of everyone he respected when the truth finally opened its mouth. I contacted a divorce attorney. I documented everything: bank records, messages, tablet screenshots, boutique records, hotel receipts, delivery confirmations. I had the future fund statements showing my contributions and the corresponding withdrawals. My attorney called it marital asset diversion. She said the word with calm, professional satisfaction. Then I planned the dinner. Our anniversary was 3 weeks away. I told Grant I wanted to do something meaningful this year, something with family and people who mattered to us. He looked at me with that careful expression he wore when I said something unexpected. I said, "You've worked so hard for us. You deserve to be recognized." He relaxed. He actually smiled. I invited his parents, his brother, 3 of his business partners and their wives, a couple of our close mutual friends, and I sent Bianca Vale a separate message. I told her Grant was hosting a private appreciation dinner after the charity event and that he wanted to recognize people who had been important to his success. She accepted within 20 minutes. Of course she did. Grant began writing a speech. He told me about it at dinner one night. With pride. He said he wanted to talk about sacrifice, about the discipline that makes a real partnership, about what it means to build something together. I said, "That sounds perfect." I meant it. It was going to be perfect. The restaurant had a private room with a projector screen. I had requested it for a slideshow, which Grant assumed was a photo tribute to our marriage. The room was full and warm. Grant stood at the head of the table in his good suit. His parents were there, his partners, everyone who had ever heard him explain financial discipline at a dinner table. He gave his speech. He talked about commitment, sacrifice, discipline. Then he smiled at the room and said, "Natalie didn't always understand it at first. She liked comfort, little luxuries, things that don't matter. But marriage taught her restraint." People chuckled politely. I sat there smiling while my husband publicly praised himself for shrinking me. Then he raised his glass and said, "Every dollar we saved brought us closer to our future." When he finished, the room applauded. He looked at me. He was proud of himself. That was when I stood up. I said, "I made something too, a little presentation, about our sacrifices." I clicked to the first slide. 2 columns. Left side, Natalie. Right side, Bianca. The left column said, March 14th. Natalie returned winter boots, $89. Reason, not practical. The right column said, March 12th. Maison Lefebvre tote delivered to Bianca Vale. Amount, $4,812. I clicked forward. Natalie skipped her annual physical. Grant said the copay was unnecessary. Same month, full-day spa package for 1, champagne arrival, $1,640. I clicked again. Natalie kept her cracked phone for 8 months. Bianca received an upgraded phone, billed under client communications. I clicked again. Natalie's overtime bonuses transferred to Future Fund, $6,200 over 18 months. Future Fund withdrawals matching Bianca's rent payments, $26,400. Then I clicked one more time. Natalie anniversary gift, clearance kitchen towels, $11.49. Bianca birthday gift, diamond bracelet, $3,900. Someone at the table whispered, "Jesus." The room had gone completely silent. Grant was standing at the head of the table with his mouth open, the speech still folded in his jacket pocket. Bianca arrived during the speech. She sat near the back, still in her coat, looking pleased with herself. She thought she had been invited to be honored. Then she saw her name on the screen. I watched her process it. She was composed, I'll give her that. She started to stand. She had a look on her face like she was above this. Then I clicked to the final slide. It was a screenshot of the message she had forwarded to M, the one where she called Grant the most useful idiot she had ever had, the one where she described me eating markdown specials while she collected Maison Lefebvre. Below it was a screenshot of a different conversation, Bianca with a man whose name was not Grant, a conversation about a wedding venue, a conversation about a honeymoon, a conversation where she described Grant as still paying for everything, bless him. The room did not gasp. It went the specific kind of quiet that happens when people understand something fully and completely and do not know what to do with it. Grant turned to look at Bianca. "Is that real?" he asked. Bianca looked at the screen, then at him, then at the entire room. For 1 second, I thought she might deny it. Instead, she laughed once under her breath and said, "Grant, please. You knew what this was. You were never my man. You were useful." That was the first time I saw him look cheap. That, I think, was the moment he understood that everything he had done, every dollar withheld from me, every dinner he'd denied, every future he'd promised and stolen, had been in service of a woman who was marrying someone else. He had not been her lover. He had been her budget. His face changed in a way I had never seen. By the following week, Grant's business partners had launched an internal financial review. Several of the expense categories he had used were tied to company accounts. The words "misuse of business funds" appeared in an email I was shown by my attorney. He was removed from financial authority within the firm while the review was pending. The man who used to lecture everyone about discipline was no longer allowed to approve a lunch receipt. The apartment Bianca had been living in, the one with the arched windows, the one from my deleted "someday" folder, was in a rental agreement funded entirely by Grant. When the payments stopped, the agreement became untenably personal. She had no independent lease. She left within 30 days. Grant's parents did not call him that week. His brother sent a short message that my attorney later saw referenced in communication. It said only, "I don't know who you are." Grant tried to reach me 4 times. I did not answer. On the 5th attempt, he came to the house. He was holding flowers, a small bouquet, wrapped in the plastic of a grocery store impulse purchase. He held them out. I looked at the yellow clearance sticker still on the plastic, the kind he used to stick in my face to prove he was being smart. I said, "Even your apology came with a discount." Then I closed the door. The divorce settlement took 4 months. My attorney was thorough. She presented the documented diversion of marital funds, including my own contributions to the future fund, as evidence of financial abuse. Grant was ordered to reimburse a significant portion. I kept the house. I kept the joint savings that remained. I was awarded additional compensation for the documented misuse. Grant lost the house he had claimed to be saving for, lost his position, lost his reputation among the people who had admired his discipline and restraint. He tried once, through his attorney, to frame this as a personal matter, a mistake, a weakness, not financial abuse. My attorney sent the spreadsheet, all 26 pages. The judge was not moved by his reframing. 6 months later, I saw Grant once, not on purpose. He was standing in the discount aisle of the same grocery store where he used to inspect my receipts. His shirt was wrinkled, his cart had clearance meat, store-brand cereal, and one small bouquet with another yellow sticker on it. For a second, he saw me. Then he looked down, and that was the part that felt almost poetic. He had spent 3 years teaching me how to survive on scraps. Now he was the one living there. 2 months after the settlement, I received a message from a woman I didn't know. She said she had worked with Bianca's new husband and thought I deserved to see something. She sent me a link. Bianca Vale had gotten married. 6 weeks after the apartment payments stopped, she had married the man from the messages. The wedding was quiet but expensive-looking from the photos. A coastal venue, floral arrangements that cost what I had used to earn in a week. The beauty treatments, the dental work, the car, the wardrobe. Grant had paid to prepare Bianca for another man's wedding. He had not been Bianca's lover. He had been her renovation project. She had used him to rebuild herself, physically, financially, aesthetically, for someone else entirely. And he had never once suspected it because he was too focused on impressing her to notice she wasn't even paying attention. Then I went to the hall closet and pulled out Grant's old household notebook, the one where he logged coupons, savings targets, and clearance schedules. I opened the first page. In his careful handwriting, every dollar saved is a dollar earned. I took a pen. Underneath it I wrote, "Unless your husband spends it on the woman who never wanted him." I closed the notebook. I put it in the recycling bin on my way out the door. It was a Tuesday. The sun was out. I had an appointment with a real estate agent, a different building, a different part of the city, high ceilings, and a courtyard I'd be able to see from my window. No coupon, no clearance sticker, no man breathing through his nose over a receipt. Just my name on the lease. Just my key in the door. Just mine. So I want to ask you something. Did I go too far? Should I have handled it quietly, filed for divorce, and let him keep the reputation he built by humiliating me? Or was that room exactly where the truth belonged? Grant spent 3 years making me feel cheap so another woman could feel expensive. He controlled my food, my clothes, my health, my comfort, and my dignity, then called it discipline. So tell me honestly, would you have stayed quiet? Or would you have turned on the projector and let every receipt speak for itself? Write your opinion in the comments. Did Grant deserve what happened to him, or did I cross the line? If that ending felt deserved, hit the like button. Subscribe for more stories about betrayal, dirty secrets, broken loyalty, moral payback, and people finally getting what they earned. And watch another story on the channel, because some secrets are even dirtier when they finally come out. See you in the next videos.